Call me Caravan Carman because we are talking about transports. Okay, you put a transport in your army, you painted it or sprayed that model to get it ready for the tabletop so you're all good to go. You better not be nodding. You don't know what to do with it. Yeah, it's a transport, so you stick people inside. But who and why? And each transport does a different thing. So we have to look at the specific transports of the Adepta Sororitas, the Genestealer Cults, and a bit on the transports of the Deathwatch, the main factions I talk about on this channel. I recommend watching the whole video even if you only like one of these factions, because rather than covering general tactics with no specifics, I explain the tactics with examples from a faction. The tactics are applicable to more than one faction. What works great for the Genestealer Cult can also work well for the Adepta Sororitas, but with dominions instead of metamorphs. Transports have value generally to an army. Your troops can move faster. If it is a dedicated transport and all the models inside can scout, you can still scout the transport. Transports normally move about 12 inches, which is going to be better than your 6-inch move, unless you've really misplayed which units go inside. You can put Pure Strain Genestealers into a truck, but since Pure Strain Genestealers move 8 inches and can advance and charge, they're not getting too much out of it compared to, say, Acolyte Hybrids, who only move 6 inches and can't advance and charge. Normally. But you can disembark from a vehicle that hasn't moved and still charge. This can give you a bit of extra speed. And then there are some transports like the Land Raider that allow you to charge after the transport has moved, after your unit has disembarked. Transports usually are cheap, so you have another cheap unit to complete missions. Unlike in 9th edition, which required a lot of squads of 5 infantry models for most secondary missions, 10th edition needs a unit. Any unit. With their speed, transports can move and complete those missions. And transports can transport multiple units as long as there is space inside. Transport capacity 12 will let you have 10 dominions with Astrid and Agatha, which are 1 unit for rules purposes once attached. Or you can have a unit of 5 Repentia, a unit of 3 Archoflagellants, 2 Crusaders, and Ephriel Stern and Kaiganil. That also fits within the 12 model transport capacity. You can't use unit abilities like Ephriel Stern's Holy Judgment inside the tank unless the ability says so. Like, this enhancement from the Outlander Claw detachment lets you use it even though you're inside a transport, and it relates to the firing deck. So we'll talk about the Genestealer Cult first, and the Cult Truck. With the Cult Truck, you can have an amazing first turn charge in the Xeno Creed detachment. You put Metamorphs and an Acolyte Icon Ward inside the Cult Truck. Every model inside can scout 6 inches, which means this dedicated transport truck can scout 6 inches. Your unit will then disembark within 3 inches of the transport. As long as the unit disembarks before the transport moves, the disembarking unit can still charge. The unit moves and advances. So you are 15 inches plus d6 from the advance roll up the table before anything else has happened. And using Tireless Fervor as a stratagem or the Incendiary Inspiration enhancement on the Acolyte Icon Ward, you can charge even though you advanced. There you go, a first turn charge because of the extra 3 inches you got from the truck. Trucks can help in other detachments. Your Biophagus and whatever unit you're attached to Biophagus to can get much closer in the Biosanctic Brood Surge, or in the Final Day detachment. These are detachments that have a lot of infiltrating units. If you can rapidly move the rest of your army up to support those infiltrating units, your entire army can be pushing from the middle of the board. Having a transport will keep your units safe. Even aberrants, tough aberrants, don't want to be shot. If you're facing a more melee-heavy enemy army, if you get charged, the truck dies and not your melee unit that was within the truck. You should be able to get out of the transport outside of engagement range and then charge the enemy in your own turn. In the Brood Brothers Auxilia detachment, you could shoot with one of your Brood Brothers units to get +1 to hit for the Genestealer Cult units against one enemy unit. Now the truck and all of the firing deck shots will get +1 to hit. The Goliath Truck allows you to reroll the wound rolls of a unit that disembarked if it shoots the same thing that the truck shot at. So if you have a Brood Brothers unit shooting first, then the Goliath Truck, then the unit that disembarked from it, the disembarking unit is getting +1 to hit and full rerolls to wound. This is not necessary for Acolytes with Hand Flamers, but great for Metamorphs with Hand Flamers. Now they have a similar ability, plus their own really cool ability to move into combat if they get shot, and the 5+ feel no pain. This isn't amazing as an ability on 10 neophytes outside of 1000 point games or smaller, but an assisting Reductus Saboteur who will very much enjoy having full rerolls to wound on her demo charge, and or her remote explosives. You could drop her off on an objective to complete a mission, while another unit that was inside disembarks to shoot the enemy. With that Brood Brothers +1 to hit, and with that truck full rerolls to wound, you can kill a horde of enemies with high toughness and low armor save, like Ogryns and Chaos Spawn. You don't really want trucks in the Host of Ascension detachment, better to have more infantry arrive from reserve. A truck would come on 6 inches from the edge, and then units inside can disembark as long as they are not within 9 inches of the enemy. All of our infantry units can deep strike. Do that instead. The truck will have sustained hits and ignore cover, but it seems a waste of points. Especially when an equal number of points could be spent on an Achilles Ridge Runner which has a heavy mining laser. In the Outlander Claw detachment, this is your transport-focused detachment. With the Rapid Takeover detachment rule, the truck gets +1 objective control, meaning it can better hold objectives. It can get around the battlefield much quicker with encircling the prey. If it's near a board edge, you can leave and come back on another board edge or in your enemy's deployment zone in your coming turn. If you have a unit inside with good firepower that is going to be rolling some hit rolls, so not hand flamers, you can have close range shootout to have lethal hits which will affect the weapons of the firing deck. A Benefictus and 10 neophytes inside can benefit, as long as they stay within the truck to use the firing deck ability. The truck can be useful as a static bunker, but potentially mobile bunker. A unit starts within the truck, in your movement phase, the unit inside gets out of the truck, and another unit gets inside the truck. Then the truck can move, the truck can shoot something, and the models inside can also shoot with the firing deck rule. And whatever they shoot at, the unit that previously disembarked from it will now get full rerolls to wound against that enemy unit. Over multiple turns, you can cycle units in and then out. It helps to keep them safe, and their shooting is not made any worse. The truck doesn't have to move. If it's on an objective with good firing lines, don't move. In the Outlander Claw, the truck can sit on the objective with its objective control of 3, and if it's destroyed, the unit spills out and onto the objective. They will be battle shocked when their transport is destroyed, but you'll recover at the start of your command phase in time to score that objective. Using the bunker truck tactic, I would have Metamorphs inside first so that they scout with the Goliath Truck, then follow up with Acolytes and or Neophytes. As soon as that first generation of cultists has children, they find out that their own personal beloved truck is actually the family truck. The Rockgrinder can do many of the things that the Goliath Truck can do, but the Rockgrinder is not a dedicated transport, so it cannot scout. And it can only transport 6 models, not 12, so you aren't able to fit neophytes inside. It has a big gun like a heavy mining laser or heavy seismic cannon, but I would prefer to put them on the cheaper Achilles Ridge Runner. What it can do is transport 5 acolytes with demo chargers and hand flamers. They can't use their own once per game demo chargers from the firing deck, but the demolition cache of the Rockgrinder will be enough. The hand flamers can keep firing. You don't get to use unit abilities inside a transport, so they don't get their reroll 1s to wound. That is the acolyte ability. You can't transfer that through the firing deck. It isn't the acolytes that are firing through the firing deck, it is technically, for rules purposes, the truck. But this is good fire, and when needed you can drop off the 5 acolytes to complete a mission or take an objective. Whether it's shooting or combat, the acolytes get to reroll all wound rolls against enemies on objectives. They can disembark, they can fire their hand flamers, they can charge. They don't need to reroll wounds like the Goliath Truck has. The Goliath Rockgrinder doesn't have that ability. It charges enemies and then becomes a nuisance because the enemy will have to fall back from it if they want to do anything to it, and if they do so, they have to take a desperate escape test, and if they're battle shocked, they are at -1 to that test. The Drill Dozer Blade can be rather scary, but the Goliath Rockgrinder is not that tough. Our heaviest vehicle is the medium vehicle of other factions. It's the same toughness as the Battle Sisters Immolator, but with fewer wounds. The Immolator has 1 more wound. The Immolator is very useful for army-wide support. With the Purge and Cleanse ability, in your shooting phase, you shoot an enemy unit, and that removes the benefit of cover from that enemy unit. If you were using the Imperial Agents allied version of the Immolator in any Imperium army, this is useful to have because it will help the entire Imperium army. If you had 10 Battle Sisters and an Immolator supporting an Imperial Knights army, all of those Imperial Knights will be able to ignore cover against that one enemy unit. Any of your attacks can provide this. It doesn't have to be the Immolation Flamers, it could be a Heavy Bolter that's on the Immolator or the Hunter-Killer Missile. All you need to do is hit. So you shouldn't rely on that 2+ one-shot Hunter-Killer Missile. Imperial Agents don't get to use Miracle Dice. But for Battle Sisters in the Adepta Sororitas, you're using Miracle Dice. You might as well use a 2 of a Miracle Dice to make sure you hit. I keep seeing Retributors in Immolators. In the Index this worked because the Immolator ability was different, as was the Retributors. In the Index, the Immolator let a unit disembarking reroll all of their wound rolls, very similar to the Goliath Truck. This makes the trip with the Retributors one way. They're not coming back after doing their one super shot. This is an expensive combo, and you're not using the Immolator's best ability, their ability to split a unit of 10 into 2 units of 5. When an Immolator splits a unit, they are separate units for all rules purposes. Killing a unit for victory points, you kill one half, 5 of them. Great, that's a victory point, the enemy killed a unit. When you lose a squad of 5 sisters, that can be a Miracle Dice. A character joins 5 of those sisters, the other half doesn't get any bonuses from the character. Totally separate units. At the start of the step where you assign characters and decide which transport units are going to go in, you can split a Battle Sister, Dominion, or Novitiate squad to have 5 sisters that are promising to start in the Immolator and another 5 separate. With Dominions, your Immolator will get to scout because it is a dedicated transport, as long as all the models inside have the scout rule, which they should because the Dominions have an extra special rule, Holy Vanguard, which means that characters attached to them can still scout as long as they're deployed within a transport. You can do something similar to the Goliath Truck's bunker truck tactic. You could scout with 5 Dominions, they can then get out, and 5 Repentia or 5 Retributors could get in, and then the Immolator can move on. It's the best of both worlds. Splitting a unit gives you the 5 Dominions, back from like previous editions, where all the special weapons are concentrated within 1 unit of 5, but it also gives you another 5 models with a Simulacrum who can hold in objectives and keep trying to generate Miracle Dice, especially the objective in your deployment zone. Battle Sister squads getting split will mean that, especially in smaller games, your Battle Sister squads with sticky objectives can go further. Now you have 2 units for the price of 1 that are able to control objectives with the Defenders of the Faith ability. And splitting Novitiates, you still have 5 Novitiates that can infiltrate and block enemy infiltrators. They will have the Simulacrum so that potentially they can generate a Miracle Dice in the first turn, while the other half is supporting a Palatine with her rerolls to advance and charge rolls because of the Sacred Banner. And the Immolator will drive that squad right into the fight. When it's fighting, the Novitiates give the Palatine a bunch of bonuses like reroll hit rolls of 1 or reroll all hit rolls when attacking enemies on objectives. If you wanted a surprise Immolator, you could have the Immolator come on from the side of the board, from strategic reserves. From 2,000 points upwards, the objective markers are within 6 inches of the board edge. And the unit inside could disembark, and as long as it is not 9 inches from the enemy and within 3-inch control range of that objective, you have an objective, provided it was previously empty. It's unlikely, but possible as a tactic. The Hallowed Martyrs detachment likes Immolators. As soon as your Immolator loses 1 wound, it is below starting strength, because when you are 1 model, your starting strength is determined by the number of wounds you have. Now you are hitting on a 2+ with your twin multi-melter. The Bringers of Flame detachment makes all of your weapons assault, so you can advance and still shoot. And if you can be speedy with your transport and get within 6 inches of the enemy, you will add +1 strength to the attack. That means your twin multi-melters are now strength 10. Toughness 5 enemies are wounded on a 2+. Toughness 9 enemy transports are going to be wounded on a 3+. This isn't a dead detachment, but it needs Rhinos and Immolators to get units close to have that bonus strength. As an all-infantry army, it's still fast due to universal assault, but it is unlikely to be able to get as close as before without transports. Carry Forth the Faithful will let you re-roll the advance roll for your transport in case it wasn't quite enough to get within 6 inches, and then the unit can disembark even though your transport advanced. Now your Dominions can be super close, and their melter weapons or their flamers, whichever weapon you've equipped them with, will be +1 strength as long as you're within 6 inches of the enemy. The Immolator is a very good and versatile transport, and I encourage you to take one in your army, at least one. But you may instead be playing smaller games and still want transports, in which case you need to turn to the Sororitas Rhino. They are cheaper than the Immolator. They are speedy, they can fit more models. That's very important for Repentia if you're playing in the Penitent Host attachment and you have a squad of 10. The Rhino doesn't have the twin multi-melters of the Immolator, but it still has the Hunter-Killer missile. Fire it as soon as there is a good target. Any heavy infantry or enemy tanks or monsters. The Rhino can transport 12 infantry models. It cannot transport the Triumph of St. Catherine. Once the unit inside has disembarked and gone off to charge or shoot the enemy, the Rhino can complete secondary missions or primary missions, and it can also be a nuisance. You can charge enemies that can't really hurt it, like a unit of Tau Breachers. They were going to shoot at your Battle Sisters next turn, which would be painful, but a fast-moving transport can move up to them, charge them, and doesn't need to tank shock them. It only needs to be in combat to stop them shooting your sisters. The Breachers will then have to fall back in their next turn, or stay still and not shoot. If they did accidentally hurt your Rhino in melee, the Rhino heals a wound in your command phase. Dominions especially love transports, because with their reactive move, Righteous Awareness, you can reactive move back inside a transport. It's a normal move. If you end a normal move within 3 inches of the transport, you can embark within the transport. For shenanigans around getting into and getting out of transports, you want the Repressor. Its special ability is that once per turn in your opponent's charge phase, after your opponent has declared a charge target, one of the sisters units that is within 3 inches of the transport can embark within the Repressor. Now they're not going to get charged. Maybe the enemy charges the Repressor instead, but Repressors are not as squishy as Battle Sisters. Your sisters can hide inside. Maybe they never leave, because it's scary out there. This is best with Dominions, especially Dominions with Flamers or Melter Guns. They can travel around inside the Repressor. You don't need to leave because it has firing deck 6. So all of the good guns inside can still fire out. In the Hallowed Martyrs, if your Repressor was damaged, you will get +1 to hit from the detachment rule as a single model below standing wounds. Firing deck, as a rule, effectively passes the guns to the tank. They are fired by the tank, so the melter guns from the Dominions will get +1 to hit rolls. If the plasma pistol from the Superior overheats, the hazardous wounds are taken on the Repressor, because the Repressor fired the pistol. If the Dominions inside were below starting strength or below half strength, that doesn't affect the melter gun's hit roll, because it is the Repressor that's considered to fire it. And each model can only pass 1 weapon to their transport, even though the Dominions have bolt pistols and vehicles can fire pistols and other guns, the Dominions will want to pass their 1 melter gun to the tank to shoot. If you filled the Repressor with Dominions with Flamers, you can't use them in Overwatch because firing deck is only active in your shooting phase, not in the enemy movement or the enemy charge phase. Blazing Ire is a wonderful stratagem with the Repressor. If the enemy targets the Repressor after they've fired, the unit inside can disembark and shoot back. It's like a free extra round of shooting for your unit, and it's at normal ballistic skill. You're not hitting on 6s like with Overwatch. And if the enemy was planning on charging your unit that disembarked, we have emergency combat embarkation to get our unit back inside the Repressor. In, out, shoot them all around. If your Repressor was destroyed, you can deliberately blow it up with Sanctified Immolation in the Hallowed Martyrs detachment, and the unit that was inside is not affected by the deadly demise. It's an explosion, so the fire and the shrapnel goes outwards. An implosion would shoot it inwards. So the Dominions will be fine. The Repressor model is not available for sale from Games Workshop anymore. It's an out-of-production Forge World model. But the Immolator, the Rhino, the Goliath Truck kit, which builds both the Goliath Truck and the Rockgrinder, can be bought through my affiliates. These are linked in the description. They will give you discounts compared to buying through Games Workshop. The Deathwatch are less reliant on transport abilities. They use teleport shenanigans, so you don't often need transports unless the terrain is going to be very light. As long as you have somewhere to hide from the enemy's guns, then you'll still be able to teleport around. A cheap option is a Rhino, that will keep you safe. The Flyer Corvus Blackstar I find a bit too expensive. It has some nice guns and I know it looks cool, but it's gonna fall out of the sky like at the start of the Space Marine 2 game. There are other transports I'm gonna recommend. 2 rhinos is an option, or you stick with site-to-site teleportation. That is a kind of transport, you just cut out the middleman. Or maybe the middleman is the warp. Those stratagems exist in the Black Spear Task Force in the Space Marine styled version, and in the Imperial Agents Xenos Hunters version, this is the Rapid Tactical Relocation stratagem. In the Imperial Agents version of Deathwatch, the Rhino and the Corvus Blackstar are the only transports available. If you're playing Space Marines and you're not in the Black Spear Task Force, then you're more likely to want transports. We have more options. The Razorback can be used. A small unit only can go inside, as it only has a transport capacity of 6. That will let your, say, 5 Deathwatch veterans go faster, and you can disembark, and then your Frag Cannon and Infernus Heavy Bolter can reroll hit rolls and wound rolls. Hit rolls from their unit ability as long as they're fighting aliens, and wound rolls as long as they attack the same thing as the Razorback. I've tried it a few times, and you don't get many shots out of this squad of 5. I think the Rhino is better to move 10 Marines in a kill team with a character like a Chaplain, a Captain, or a Watchmaster. You can have 2 squads of 5 Deathwatch veteran Marines in the Rhino instead of 1 unit of 10. Then you have the option to charge multiple units, you have the option to complete multiple objectives. The Rhino gives you speed and some durability. What will kill a precious Deathwatch veteran will only inconvenience a Rhino. And it doesn't need to live forever, just long enough to get your Marines into combat. If you see a lot of firepower coming at your transport, enough to kill it, and then another enemy unit is ready to shoot your Deathwatch veterans after they fall out of it, use Smoke Screen on the Rhino, and against the most threatening enemy, use Armor of Contempt. Now the enemy is -1 to hit, you get the benefit of cover, and the enemy is another -1 to their armor penetration. AP -2 is now AP 0. If that second enemy unit has to kill your Rhino, your Deathwatch veterans have survived when they otherwise wouldn't. For Genestealer Cult, you would use Smoke, and then the extra stratagem would be Devoted Crew in the Outlander Claw. For Adepta Sororitas, it would be Smoke, and then the Shield of Aversion in the Bringers of Flame detachment, coupled with Smoke. Deathwatch transports don't get the Black Spear Task Force detachment rule unless you use the stratagem Adaptive Tactics on them. This isn't going to matter for a Rhino, but it might matter for a Land Raider. Land Raiders can have quite a lot of guns. If they have sustained hits or lethal hits, or a bit of precision, cheeky bit of precision, if your attacks are high enough damage and there's an enemy character there, you might do enough to kill them. It's a risk, so I would go for the sustained hits or the lethal hits. Land Raiders can carry a big veteran kill team, or Terminators, or a Fortis kill team, or any of the Codex Space Marine units the Deathwatch can take, as long as they're infantry. Putting 3 Assault Centurions? Yeah, I'm not a fan of Centurions, but you could put 3 Assault Centurions in your Land Raider. That will make up for their very poor speed of 4 inches, and even after the Land Raider is moved because of Assault Ramp, they are able to charge. Deathwatch Terminators that disembark can already reroll their charge rolls. The Fortis kill team disembarks and the Land Raider shoots a unit so it's damaged, and then the Fortis kill team will get +1 to hit against that enemy unit. There are a lot of options, there are many different tactics. This video covers the mechanized tactics of the Adepta Sororitas, though using the Hallowed Martyrs detachment, and this video covers mechanized tactics for the Genestealer Cult. That will give you a few more ideas. My darlings and viewers, have a great day of 40k.